Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. Couple of things really off the bat. We're in a new spot, as you can tell. The picture is it's going to improve from here on. Okay, so this is the first time I'm seeing it live. I'm going to be looking at you guys in a different area now. But first things first, I want to say thank you so much to the international best-selling author of the Demon Cycle series, Peter V. Brett. How are you tonight, my friend?
I'm doing great, man. I didn't expect your intro song to go in so hard.
Dude,
really trashes.
It does, man. My buddy Daryl and his band DB Rook, he's a indie author. That's his band, and they put one together for me that was just spectacular, and it goes hard, man.
That's sweet. I love it.
So, guys, I've been kind of posting about a little project that me and my wife have done. So, like, the other half is her graphic art studio. This will be improving, but we're here. The books are out here, and wow. Just real quick, if you ever move a library, which I'd never done before, that was like the first time I ever did it. Dude, they're so heavy.
Oh, I know.
The studs studs, you got to get in them bad boys, but get in a few of them because it's a lot of weight.
Yeah, no, moving books is the hardest thing. Like, book nerds have it so much worse than everybody else when it comes to moving.
It's making me like put more thought into the books that I'm going to buy in the future because wow, I just, I went from buying, I think it was 2 at first because I'm like 150 pounds for 2 brackets. It's got to be enough, right? Nope, it wasn't enough. So 3 to 4 to 5, do yourself a service. If you move to different shelves where you're having to not just use like a bookcase. Well, there's like bookshelves that are free hanging like these. You need to have that weight hooked up. So I'm going to go
collapse on you.
Yes. What is it?
Man.
Yeah. So I built these and it was heavier than I thought. So I'm going to do an introduction real quick. And I hope that I do it justice because it's phenomenal. So Peter V. Brett, your agent is Joshua. I hope I'm saying this right. Bilmes from Jabberwocky Literary Literacy Agency. You're the international best-selling author of the Demon Cycle series and sold over 4 million copies worldwide in 27 languages.
28.
How does that feel?
We just added a 28th, which I'm pretty excited about. Yeah.
So what was the 28th?
We got retranslated into Greek after, they came out in Greece like years and years ago, and then it was redone.
That's incredible.
And we just added Ukraine. That's
good. That's incredible. So I can't imagine having, so real quick, a little precursor for you, Peter. I didn't start reading young. I started reading when I was 29 and I turned 34 next month. So it's really kind of still new to me. A lot of the technical terms, the tropes I'm learning between genres, it's something that is still a little new to me and extreme amount of fun. Nonetheless,
obviously you made a lot of progress in 5 years.
Yeah, I caught the bug, I guess you could say, and just have gone through authors and I remember seeing, and we'll get into it a little bit more. Remind me, is this what anniversary?
So The Warded Man originally came out in 2008 in the UK and 2009 in the US. So technically it's the 15th anniversary this year.
That's incredible. I watched your opening of the box with your family member, and it was awesome, man, because that has to be the coolest package. Like, it's been out, you've had your success with it, and then to hit an anniversary.
I'm so incredibly fortunate, and I'm very aware of it, and I'm very thankful for it. And man, when I got into this job, I was writing a book because I loved writing books, and like I just wanted to get published and see my book on a bookshelf, like in a store, and like that was all I really wanted. I didn't expect it to be my career. I didn't expect to like get to travel all over the world promoting my books. I didn't think that I would get to write a full series. Like I just like I was just doing it because it was a dream of mine. And so I'm just like I'm still overwhelmed and thrilled at just how amazingly well it's gone, and the fact that not only has the book been out for 15 years but has done well enough that they repackaged it and re-released it, you know, as an anniversary edition, which is just like a yet another sort of milestone that I never expected to reach as an author. So I'm incredibly grateful for it.
That's a cool. I'm glad that you went into that, and I'll tell you why. I was thinking about it. I was picking my kids up from the babysitter earlier, and I have these random thoughts, and I've been thinking about tonight and how it would feel to, you know, this passion for reading and even more. If I just got this, I'm going to do audiobooks, and I'm just kind of diving in. I'm just really my whole world. I feel like I just keep thinking about books and the art and how beautiful and how there's really nothing else other than my wife and like my children that bring me that amount of joy. There's this hobby of literature. Literature has just brought me so much happiness and mental clarity. Um, so what I'm getting to is I was thinking about, you know, putting myself in your position and having this love, and we all know that writing a book is very time consuming. And even if you get to finishing a book, the odds of becoming a successful author and simply only doing that for work is rare. Let's not, you know, let's be honest.
Yeah.
And how that must feel to know that you have inspired millions to pick up that next book. And it was just really inspiring for me to think about. And I hear the gratitude in what you just said, like the gratitude in you noticing that and fully kind of saying this was a dream of mine and it become true.
I still can't wrap my head around it sometimes. Like it's the whole thing still feels surreal to me. Um,
That's so cool.
the fact that the like you know just getting published at all, you know, not even being sick, like there's getting published at all, and then there's sticking around for a while, but still needing to keep your day job, and then there's like
Oh,
the like so fortunate like to be able to do it as my full time job. Like I never expected that to happen, and I like
yeah. It's
I still
crazy.
expect somebody to come and take it away from me at any minute.
Ah, I can understand that. I can understand because I'm sure you've heard of the gentleman, but Ryan Cahill was talking about that. It's like um, when I wrote my first book, it was because of my love for writing and that I wanted to do it. And now that this pays my bills, this is what sustains me and my family. It's become a little more stressful.
Yeah.
So I can absolutely, you know, without experiencing that, I've talked to other people who have a very similar frame of mind. Like somebody could just come and take this from me, and this is what I have. And I think that that's being gracious and also understanding that it could all of a sudden not be exactly how it was yesterday, the next day before that keeps you. It would keep me inspired to keep doing it, I guess. Um, so I read something super interesting, and I'm going to get to it. Normally, I would get to something like this a little later, but I have to hear this. So tell me about your HP iPac 6515 on the New York subway.
So The Warded Man was the fourth book that I ever wrote.
Really?
I wrote a book in high school. It was terrible. It was never published. It never should be published. It never will be published. And but it was a good learning experience. And getting to the end of a book, like writing a book and writing the end at the end of it, is a high that like once I tasted it, I've been chasing it my whole life. And so in college, I wrote another novel. It had things in it that were really good. There are parts of it that I'm still really proud of, but overall, it was kind of a mess. And so I went and wrote another book, and that book was much better than the last two, but still not professional level.
Okay.
Um, And so I decided to sort of drop that project and start something new, which was what would eventually become The Warded Man. So I wrote a full draft of that book, and I went to it was the Science Fiction Writers of America Mill and Swill party. So like once a year they would have this party in New York City. They would invite all of the editors and literary agents who work or were based in New York City to this party. And if
Mhm.
you're a member of the Science Fiction Writers of America, you can go. And so a friend of mine was a member and took me as his plus one. And while we were there, Joshua Bilmes, who would eventually become my agent, was there having a drink. And my friend says, "That's Joshua Bilmes. He's the real deal. He's a literary agent. You got to go talk to him." Um, and I was like, "I'm not ready for that. I'm not going to talk to him. Like, I'm just here to look around and figure out who's who." And so my friend, like a good friend, shoved me right in front of him. Like, "Have you met Pete?" And walked away.
Oh, of
Um,
course.
and so I told him about my book, and I told him that I didn't feel like I was ready. I wasn't sure that my writing was at a professional level. And so I'd been reluctant to start submitting it. And he looked at me and he said, "You don't reject books. I reject books. So you send me your book and I'll tell you if it's good enough to publish. Because what are you going to do? Just like let it sit on the shelf and catch dust?" So I sent him the book and he rejected it.
Oh
um,
no.
and he rejected it kind of brutally too. Like
Uh-huh.
his rejection letter, which I reread recently for reasons, was still like pretty harsh. It was like, "I'm deeply disappointed. You told like the book that I imagined when you told me about it was nothing really like what it was. Like, there's a lot of amateur mistakes, whatever." Um, but at the end of the letter, he said, "But it's good enough that if you have anything else, I'd like to take a look at it. I think you have potential." And so I sent him one of my older books. He rejected that too. And he gave me a book on writing called Writing to Sell by Scott Meredith, who was
Ooh.
um, his mentor as a literary agent. And he said, "The Warded Man, like that's the book. You can fix that book. Read this book on writing, understand how plot works, and go fix that book and come back to me." And so at the time, I had a girlfriend and a full-time job and a long commute into the city and friends and a life and all those things. And so the time that I needed to invest to fix that book was a lot.
Sure.
And but an opportunity like that doesn't happen every day. And so I resolved to find the time, to make the time. And so the one thing that I could easily give up, well, not so easily, but the one thing that I could give up was my reading time on the subway during my commute to and from work. So normally I would sit on the subway and just read Robert Jordan or whatever. And instead I said, "All right, I had just gotten this smartphone. It was like a Windows phone, and it had a very pared down version of Microsoft Word. It would crash if you tried to use a file too big. So I had to break the book out into individual chapters and work
Okay.
on each chapter one by one. Um, but it had like a real keyboard, like with like buttons that would click when you press them. So there was like a satisfying sense of like you can type fast and know that you're um, doing it. And so I would get on the subway in the morning, like put on my headphones, like shove an old lady out of the way so I could get a seat. And then I would just sit and write for the 45 minutes to an hour it took me to get to Times Square. And then I would do the same thing on the way home. And so I was averaging about 300 words each way.
Okay.
So that's 600 words a day. And then I would go home and plug the phone into like a dock. Remember docks?
Yes.
I would dock the phone and it would sync the Word file back to the desktop so I could save it and fix all of my thumb typos with a real, screen and keyboard. And then I would write a little bit more each night. And so I was averaging about 1,000 words a day, 5 days a week.
That's
And
good.
yeah. And I did that for a year. And basically threw out 60% of the original manuscript and
Wow.
rewrote it from the ground up. And but I knew what I was doing at that point. I had read the book on writing, things had clicked. I really felt like I was in the zone. And so at the end of that year, I resubmitted the book and I said to myself, like, okay, if he rejects this too, maybe this writing thing just isn't for me. Um, and instead, like I remember I was sitting in my cubicle at work and he called me up and he's like, "This is the best book I've read this year. We're going to take it
Wow.
right to market. Don't get too excited. It might take a really long time to sell it. You never know with these things." And I said to him, I was like, "How often do you not sell a book that you set out to sell?" And he's like, "Oh, never, but you never know." So, um, but within a month, we had offers from three of the big five publishing houses. I actually got to choose where I wanted to go, which was amazing.
Wow.
Yeah,
So, uh, Del Rey in the
yeah. I,
US?
I went with Del Rey in no small part because Del Rey publishes Terry Brooks, and Terry
Sure.
Brooks was my gateway into fantasy when I was a kid. And so, like being in the same publisher as Terry Brooks, and also because we both have last names that start with BR, we'd be next to each other on the bookshelf. And I was
Ooh,
like super psyched about that.
dude, I love that.
Yeah.
That's thinking, that's a higher level of thinking. Oh my gosh. So, real quick, while you're talking about it, Joshua Walker, who is a wonderful, wonderful self pub author, man, who I highly recommend. He's in Australia, who started writing because of you. We've
Oh,
had
shit.
conversations about it. Yeah, yeah, you're a huge inspiration to him. So I wanted to make sure to let you know that, and that he loves this the subway story, and that's why I kind of wanted you to go over it because it's super inspirational. And he wrote his first novel on the train, from what is it, to train to and from Uni. As a result, I'm gonna act like I know what Uni is, Josh, but I don't. But that's so cool, man, because I think
Like
as
Uni
a creator,
University, or is Uni a place? Now
I
I
think
want
you're
to.
probably right to university. You're probably right.
Yeah.
Um, to find an individual that, there's lots of authors I love, absolutely love, five-star books. But there's a few that I uh, can relate to on a level like what he's saying he relates with you. And I'll just name it real quick: James Rollins or James Clemens, same guy.
Mm.
Very, very inspirational to me. J.M. Miro, Stephen Price is his real name. Uh, but to have those people in your life to keep you going, to re-inspire you, is got to be something that you feel so incredible about. I mean, just to hear that, how does that kind of translate to you, that you've inspired people to take this step that you took, knowing how hard that is?
It's amazing. I feel really honored to hear that. Like I don't really think of myself as inspirational. I have kids to keep me humble. Uh, and
Sure.
so it's like amazing to hear that. And like, I also, like, I completely understand it. Just 3 weeks ago, I was at Rose City Comic Con in Portland, and Terry Brooks was there. And like, we went out to dinner together, like we were
No
peers,
way.
and we taught. And like, like Terry was amazing. He went, like, I was at an author signing with a bunch of other authors, and he came out. He had been signing for 2.5 hours. He's 80,
He's
81,
getting
I
it.
think. He's been signing for 2.5 hours straight, and he cheerily comes over, buys the book of every author who's at the signing table, and then invites everybody to dinner. And like,
Wow.
and then he turns to me and he goes, "Pete, can you plan that for us?" And so, and I like, "What do you say?" But yes, sir, when something
Yeah,
like that happens.
exactly.
But
Oh my gosh.
but the whole time, it's, like, he's treating me like a peer. He's treating me like, another author, like, and but to me, I'm geeking out inside, because I'm like, my childhood hero is like, like, wants to have dinner with me, and like is talking to me like I'm a regular person. And uh I think of how inspired I was by his books, and like the fact that his book, the little blurb about him at the back of the book, said that he was a writer in high school. And when I was in high school, that meant the world to me. That was why I wrote my first book in high school. And so to hear that I've had that kind of uh, that I've offered that kind of inspiration to other writers is just amazing to me, because I know what it feels like.
Ah, what you are saying, this is what I hear. This is what I hear, and it kind of, there's a lot of things that prevent me, or I guess I feel kind of self-conscious about starting reading a lot later than a lot of people do. But this is one thing, having a lot of life experience through lots of lows, lots of highs, before starting reading. What you're talking about is the human condition, man. And I know it's so talked about over and over again, but I think there's a reason for that. And that is the reason we relate, man. And I just enjoy hearing it. It's a nugget of gold that I take from each interview that I do. And that's a piece I'm taking away from what you just talked about. So tell us about you. Where are you coming from tonight? What do you do on the daily? Whatever you want to say.
So I live in Brooklyn. So this is my apartment. This is my actual bookshelf. These shelves are all of like I've only written 7 books, plus a couple of like short
Only.
novellas, but they're all in different languages, and so these are kind of all my books.
Wow.
In
So
different
all of those
languages.
behind you are yours.
Yeah, all the way up there
Wow, dude.
and all the way down.
Holy crap.
But they're all just different languages of the same of the same 7 books.
I love
But
that.
it's sort of like my place of power. When we bought this place, as the man in the relationship, my influence over the decor was limited. But but the one thing that I insisted on was these big floor to ceiling bookshelves because I
You can.
wanted to display not only my books but also like the books that were inspirational to me and that I loved. And so that's that. I have an office here in the apartment as well, but as I said before, the Wi-Fi in there is not great, and so it's easier to be out here.
No, I get it.
Uh, I've got 2 kids, and so during the day, like it's a mix of writing and dad stuff, and like I started going to the gym at 50. I'm 51 now, so like late in life, like you with reading, I've just so I'm trying to stay healthy and fit. I'm trying to like take care of my kids, and I'm trying to write my books. That's my day to day. But I also this year I had a new book come out, and for the first time since the pandemic, I went on book tour, and
Yes.
so the beginning of this year I was on the road constantly, like the entire month of March, plus a bunch of isolated conventions here and there. I spent a lot of time on an airplane this year, uh, but I love that too. I love the chance to remind myself that there's people on the other side of the big pile of words that actually care and actually like are invested in the story and invested in me and
Yeah.
I had forgotten some of that during the pandemic, and so going out on tour and seeing like familiar faces that I that used to come out when I was touring in the past, but also new people has just been incredibly inspiring and really makes me feel reconnected to what I do and why I do it.
I've been seeing your I don't remember, I get mixed up between the socials, whether it's Instagram, TikTok, or both. Like I watch your stuff, and your signings are really cool to watch because I what I pay attention to, and something that you translate to the people who come and want you to sign their books, is the way you feel about them. And I can tell that you are happy to do what you're doing, which really inspired me to want to talk to you. Not only that, I mean, the way that I thought about demons, and we'll get into this here in a second, but the way that I thought about demons was very like surface level, and you took it
Mm.
to a whole nother dimension for me. And I love that. Peter Hirsch, what's going on, man? He says, "Hey, Pete,
Hey,
Grimfell, what's
Pete.
going on, my brother? This dude is crazy with music, man. He's just blowing it up. It's so freaking cool to watch on YouTube. He's just the most talented dude with creating music all by himself, just him. Timothy Wolf, another wonderful. I'm looking behind me because I've got his book back here somewhere. I'm not familiar enough with this shelf yet to know exactly where it's at, but another wonderful self-pub author. And yes, he meant university. Score 1 for Pete, score 0 for me.
Well, it's just we don't call it that in America, and so I
No,
only
we
know it
don't.
because like I've been traveling a lot.
The vernacular, I hope I'm using that right. I use it like that all the time, but I don't know if it's right or not. But the vernacular between countries is honestly one of my favorite things about doing what I'm doing, like with you. I know we're in America, we speak very similarly. Actually, we're not even that far apart. I'm in Ohio,
Mm.
which isn't a crazy, well, I what, 7 hours, something like that. Not even that far. But when I talk to people in Australia, lovely people, or the UK, and they say university, I'm thinking the University of Pittsburgh or the University of Buffalo, right? Where
Mm.
you went, Buffalo
Yeah,
University, where you got your degree.
true.
Um, but yeah, it's so fun to kind of like talk about those differences and feel
Yeah, a
comfortable
lot of
kind of
times if you say college, they think you mean high school. And
yes,
so it's university to them, not college.
exactly,
Um,
exactly. It confused the hell out of me first. But so if you don't mind, we'll take a couple steps back. When did you feel, as early as you can remember, your love for literature and fantasy literature in particular?
I mean, the first book I ever read, like without pictures, that I read of my own volition and not because it was assigned by school,
Sure.
what was The Hobbit.
Mm.
And I always say, like, if I had read Sherlock Holmes or Tarzan or some other thing instead of The Hobbit, my whole life might be different.
Oh
Um,
yeah, dude.
but I read that book and I loved it. And then I tried to read The Lord of the Rings, but I was in, I don't know, second or third grade, and The Lord of the Rings was just too dense for me back then.
Hmm.
I made it to the Village of Bree like a couple of times, but like there was still 500 pages left in that book, even in the first one. And so I started reading comic books after that. I read comic books for
Oh.
several years, just nothing but comic books. And then my dad kind of got fed up with me reading comic books and nothing else. He went to the library and went to the fantasy section. He remembered that I liked The Hobbit, and he just grabbed a book that looked, like a fantasy book, and came home and sort of tossed it on my bed. And he was like, "Here, read this instead of your comics." Um, and that book was The Wish Song of Shannara by Terry Brooks.
Oh.
Um, so I read that and I loved it. And then I realized that it was the sequel to something. So I read The Elfstones of Shannara, and then I realized that was the sequel to something. And so I read The Sword of Shannara. So I read that trilogy backward. Um, and then I was the one in the fantasy section of the library just taking out whatever I could take out. And I read hundreds of books since then.
Oh.
Sort of like all the Dragonlance books, all the like Forgotten Realms tie-in books, plus like all of a lot of the big fantasy, David Eddings, Robert Jordan, like there's
You
a lot of
have
Piers
a
Anthony when I was young.
Ye I didn't, so I think it was last night, like, I got to it kind of late, and I have it typed up on, Before We Go blog. I haven't submitted it yet, but I did my review for The Warded Man on, Amazon, I believe, last night, and it was either Amazon or Goodreads, I don't remember,
Hmm.
and I
Three
hadn't
stars.
looked. No, absolutely not. 5 stars, 100%,
Hmm.
1000%, and I was, a lot of readers, especially me, I relate. I want some comparisons, but I don't want those to be the law. So what I mean is, and I'll kind of just go back from what I stated in the review, is like Robert Jordan vibes because of how epic and just as simple as this sounds, it reminded me of Robert Jordan reading through the Wheel of Time, like just how epic the journey was and the characters and the relationship between the characters, but it was darker than Robert Jordan. So I had to throw in a little bit of a Joe Abercrombie feel with a George R. R. Martin feel. And after that, I said, but don't hold those as exact because Peter V. Brett has a prose that stands alone. Uh, there's certain similarities, but don't go into your books as those being law, because you have a very I don't know, it stands alone. Your prose stands alone. It's your prose, and I love that, man. I absolutely love the individuality of your prose. You tell a story, you tell it between characters that are developed, a world that you can relate with, even though it's not modern, because of the relationships between those characters. And one of the opening lines is like the mother saying, "Is like, hey, you want a hug?" And he's like, "No, I'm too old for that. My friends will see me." And she's like, just to make him feel better, it's like, the hug's for me, not you. Kind of feeling you into the dynamic between mother and son. And I really related with that. So again, your prose stands on its feet alone. And that's something that I truly respected as I was getting through the book.
Thank you so much. That means a lot to me. I work really hard on the prose. Sometimes I will spend an hour trying to get a sentence just right, and I think to myself, no one will ever notice that except me. And so it's nice to hear that. Um, I think every writer finds their unique voice as they go. You read stuff and you get inspired by it, and you absorb all of that like a sponge, and then you squeeze out that sponge, and it's something. It's your unique blend. That sounds kind of
Yes.
disgusting when I say it,
No,
but you
no,
know what I mean.
I know exactly what let's think of social media. You've
Yeah.
got these, or I have these accounts that I, excuse me, enjoy watching or whatever. But there's a million other people that do that exact same thing. When it comes to writing, I don't think that there's any other way to do it but having an individual voice, no matter who writes it. And that is absolutely like my number one love about literature, is I think every human, no matter who you are, you're going to have that voice.
Yeah. I think like it develops in stages. So I think like most of the books that I read in the '80s were very safe.
Mhm.
The hero never really gets hurt, never really the hero never dies. Nothing really bad ever happens to them. Like all the whole adventuring party is alive to have a laugh together at the end of the book. Um, or you have Robert Jordan, where like the real violence or the real uh, there's a lot of things that he sort of does off camera, like to
Yeah.
keep it you know PG.
Yeah.
And so then I read George R. R. Martin, particularly Game of Thrones, and at the end of that book, like, wait, the good guys don't win?
Right.
Or the guy I thought is the hero is dead? What? Like, and that, you know, sort of mind blowing like moment made me realize that there's so much more that I could do with a story than just the formula where everybody's happy at the end.
Oh,
Um,
yes.
and so I really like that was my big inspiration, and it wasn't just me. You mentioned Joe Abercrombie. I hadn't read his books when I was writing mine because we were published right around the same time.
Yeah.
But I talked to him, and he had a very similar experience, and a lot of the other writers of sort of my graduating class had that like George R. R. Martin moment where they're like, "Oh wait, I don't have to play by the rules." Like, and then it just opens up infinite possibilities. And it really changed the whole way I write.
It, I think I love that point, because I've read authors now who have, tell me if I'm wrong, but it kind of took the shackles off of what was possible or what you were allowed to do with a novel and the way that you wanted to take it. And that always doesn't have to be a hero at the end that is doing everything right and that's happy, that ends with all this, but all this bright shiny stuff. Because really, if you think about it, that's the most unrealistic thing in the world, is for everybody to just, there's like this imaginary finish line, right? That you pass and you're just good. You're just,
Yeah.
don't get me wrong. I love a hero story. I do, because it inspires. But I also love that the opposite. We'll call it grim dark, I guess, just so we have a frame of mind. That's a marketing thing that,
Yeah.
but I still I classify books in that because I think people know what I'm talking about when I say this. You don't have to follow the tropes or the rules that were set in the 70s or 80s where there's the hero at the end that just, there's a realistic part of life. And I think that exploring that brings the human condition even closer between um, writer and reader. Now, on the same wavelength, there are authors I've read who push the boundaries. And if there's a dark moment, let's just put it out there. Like if there's a sexual assault, a very violent, intimate kind of description of like the violence that's happening, but it doesn't add to the story. That's where I think that rule is taking a little far. Now, I could be
Yeah.
wrong because it's all very subjective. If you love that stuff, I'm not talking down about it. It's just not for me. If you do things for a shock value,
People
um,
can tell when you do something for shock
yeah,
value. If you do something that is tied into the story, where you have something to say, where you have a character arc that's dependent on something happening, uh, readers can tell that. And when you just do it to be to shock people or to titillate people or to show what an edge lord you are, like
yeah,
people can sense that, and readers are smart. Readers know when things like that happen. There are some people who just don't like to see that sort of content at all, and that's totally
right,
cool. I get that. Frankly, like there's times that I don't want to read that content,
sure,
and then like sometimes you're in a mental space where you can handle something like that, and sometimes you're not, and that's totally cool. um, but I've always been very careful to when I include elements like that, do it for a reason, do it because I have a story arc like that involves that in a way that's not superficial, that's really
sure,
like and in a way that represents all of the people that I know in real life who are victims of assault, who have been through traumatic experiences, who have PTSD, who still go out and do great things, who still go out and like raise kids and have jobs and fight fires and like so many
dude,
people around us are victims of things and you don't even know.
yeah,
And I wanted those people to feel seen too. And so like a statistically significant number of my characters, like there's 12 POVs in the Demon Cycle, and I looked at statistics and like I made 3 of them sexual assault survivors
mhm,
because that felt like it would reflect the real world to me in a way, and would
sure,
show that you can go through something like that and still go on to do great things and still be a hero just like anybody else. um
yes.
those and that wasn't an easy decision to make. Those weren't easy things to write. I've kind of uh the emotional places that I had to go to write those things were not places that I look to go to often.
Sure.
But I had something to say, particularly in the early books, and some of it was based on things that I'd experienced in my own life, where I had something to say about it. And so,
That's amazing.
yeah,
I th
like I said, I think readers can tell.
Yeah, a couple things is there's an ability to talk about those things in a book that is I think that translates to, and I'm just going to speak from my perspective. That's the only perspective I can speak through. We all know somebody that's went through a hard time like that, and there is a right way to talk about it, and then there's that way that's like I'm going to talk about it, and then there's really no importance in which I'm going to just to kind of shock you. And I'll give an example. There was a book that was recommended. It got a very low score from my buddy. It was a little too dark, and when somebody says that, that's like my cue to buy it. So I bought it, and the first chapter is dark, and you have no foundation. Uh, if you keep reading, there's a foundation for that despicable first chapter, and I am so glad because it's a top 5. John Palladino, he's a
Mm.
self-pub author, if I would have stopped reading with that disgusting first chapter that I feel like needed to be there, I do. I feel like it needed to be there. If I would have stopped there where my brain was telling me to stop, I wouldn't have that top five, man. And sometimes I guess that the balls that you would have to have that as an opening chapter are pretty big, I guess. But
Maybe you're just trying to clear out the people who aren't going to be able to handle it right up
yeah,
front.
dude, it hasn't gone that dark yet, and I'm like 3/4 away through book 2. Book 3 isn't out yet. The first chapter's it, man. It gets dark, it does. There's another scene that goes almost as dark, but there's a reason for it, and I respect it, and it kind of sets the tone for the character that we're talking about. He did it for a wonderful reason. It gives you that immediate punch to the throat that I think that character deserved because he's not a good guy. Um, I love that, man. I'm so glad that you went into that. So what was it about fantasy reading and then eventually writing that brought you specifically to fantasy? What like attributes did you um what was attractive about fantasy that no other genres was like an option for you to write?
Boredom with the real world.
Sure.
I love magic. I love superpowers. I liked, monsters. I read a lot of horror. I read a lot of like X-Men comics, and I read a lot of fantasy when I was a kid. And all of those things are sort of what melded together to form whatever, my voice is. I always really liked magic systems. I was a big D&D player, and while I was in college, they released. That was when D&D sort of got a big retrofit, where
Okay.
it was like second edition, and then they released like edition 2.5, which had like the combat and tactics books, the skills and powers books, the like you could be things other than the four original races. So like, there was like the Book of Humanoids, and they had the Magic System book. And the Magic System book was like, you don't have to use the D&D magic system. Here's a bunch of other magic systems that you can use, which are all awesome. And I ate that shit up. Like I
Yeah.
memorized all of those books, and I like created campaigns that used, rune magic, or used, like I changed the way spell slots work to make it easier for the players, or whatever. And having that ability to sort of change the rules to suit the kind of game that I wanted to run
It's
was
like the
hugely
epitome of
influential on my
D&D,
writing.
right? It's like the epitome of why like D&D is there. Now, let me remind you, like D&D is something I did not play as a young man. In fact, I had to go back and like apologize to a lot of friends that I made fun of for playing D&D because now that's like all I can think of is like the world that they were in. And it's like you were ahead of me now. Like you were miles ahead of me as an adult that I didn't even know. Um, but like the
Well, you don't
epitome for
understand D&D until you actually play it.
yes. And I'm still very new about it. In fact, David List, the guy that I have popped up here, my guy, my bearded brother, another wonderful, wonderful grimdark epic fantasy writer of violence and vigilance, which is so good. If you like Gladiator, if you like what else do I compare it to? God, like a fantasy gladiator with crazy
It's already
monsters,
awesome.
dude, he's got it. He's got it written. You're brave for representing SA in your works. Kudos for that. I love Painted Man,
Thank you.
by the way.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
David, I'm glad you're here, brother.
Yeah.
It's good to see you, man. A couple other things super quick. I start them. Here we go. My wife, she's tuned in. She must have the kids. We have 4 kids. So she has one hell of a job when I do these lives. She gets all 4 to bed. Are you currently writing?
You asking me, or are you asking your wife?
Yep. No. She's asking you.
Yeah. Well, I've got a book due at the beginning of next year, and so I am. At the beginning of this year, I didn't get much writing done because I was on tour, and I just discovered that I can't muster the energy to write when I'm on tour.
That's smart to notice that.
Well, you get these adrenaline rushes when you know. So like I would in the U.S., I was in the airport every day, flying from city to city, worried I was going
Hectic.
to miss my flight. I did miss one flight, and I had to like panic rebook to get where I needed to be. Um,
Wow.
and then you get to the event, and like for the first time in years, because I hadn't traveled because of the pandemic,
Yeah.
like I'd go to an event where it's like it's all me. Like if anyone shows up, it's because they like me or they like my books. And then even if they do show up, like I was first, I'm nervous that no one's going to show up, and then when they do show up, I'm like, oh right, now I also have to go out and entertain these people for an hour, like and so I would get these big adrenaline rushes right before the event. And then as soon as I walk out, and like nobody wants you to fail when you're doing an event like that. And so as soon as I walk out and people are supportive, like it's very easy to do the event. Um, and then there's a signing afterward, and like I get very manic during the signing because I want everybody to feel seen. I want everybody to feel appreciated. I want them to
Yeah,
be
it's
able
just
to
quick, dude.
ask picture, take pictures or ask questions or do whatever. And so by the time all of that is done, you get this big adrenaline crash.
Ooh.
And all you can do is sort of go back to your hotel room and like not talk to anybody for 12 hours and just sort of like recharge. And I
Yeah.
just discovered that I don't have the spoons to write under those circumstances.
How
Um,
could you?
yeah,
I
it's
couldn't.
hard.
Look,
Some people do. I mean, some people can do
there's
it,
freaks in nature out there, right? Dude, I
and
get that. This is what I hear. I hear you taking the time and energy and focus to make sure that the people who came to see you in particular, you give them their due diligence, man. You pay homage to the fact that they came to see you. And if you do that, that requires mental action, that requires energy. And you took that energy to make sure those people knew that you were holding them of importance.
to make sure
Uh,
that they knew that they didn't come to see me, I came to see them.
oh,
You know,
I love that.
that's how I look at it, and that's what how I really feel about it. Like, you're not like you're doing me a favor, like showing up. Like uh, I
I
feel
love that.
such gratitude for that. Like, so if I'm going to travel somewhere to be in front of people, like I'm yours until the event's over. Like whatever you want, like we're going to do that.
Ladies and gentlemen, you don't always get that with an author. Sometimes you don't. So uh, that's incredibly respectful and an honest gesture through the passion you have for what you do for the people who love what you do. And I respect that, man. And that's what I saw. Honestly, I started reading your books. I can't remember who the hell recommended, or if it was just like
Someone of impeccable taste, obviously.
of impeccable taste. I don't think it was an individual person. I don't think somebody said, "Hey, read this." It was just I discovered your work, and just through like doing reviews and loving to talk to authors, that I heard your name, found out the incredible work you did, and just the inspiration you brought so many people like Josh and gosh, so many others that I would forget everybody's name, but just everybody who's talked to me about, oh, I absolutely love that. Brent from Shelf Centered.
Mm.
He has a YouTube channel. He's like, when I need to read fantasy crack, I read the Demon Cycle until I'm finished with it. Like that,
Awesome.
yeah, it's so cool. If I ever do remember who or what was the reason I picked your book up, because I know it was either an author that told me or it was through like a buddy or something like that. But picking your work up was uh, a gesture of, I guess I'm just thankful for it, because to be here talking with you, I'm very inspired by it. Um, let's get through some of these comments real quick.
So just to finish the original question though,
Mhm.
I've got a book due in the beginning of next year.
Mm.
So for the last couple of months and for the next few months, I'm doing 1,000 words a day minimum, 5 days a week, to just slow and steady. Like, 1,000 words is small enough that there's no good excuse to not be able to write 1,000 words in a day, but
Okay.
it's big enough that it scales up quick if you do it consistently. And
Oh,
so,
yes.
so every day this week, I've managed to get my 1,000. I've been averaging like 1150, which is good. And
Yeah.
I just need to keep up with that for the next 5 months or so I can turn in this book on time.
That's an amazing, and I didn't know anything. I knew shit, dude. Like I knew nothing. When I started this channel, started talking to authors, dude, I had zero information about like realistic word counts, anything like that. So it just pays just to let you know personally, Peter. This is something I've learned over time, and just I've had so much fun doing it, man. So 1,100 words a day for 5 months, like that's solid, man. And to keep yourself on that 5-day schedule, that's a job. And yeah, I'm glad that you're inspired by your job, I guess is what I'm getting to.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
look, I don't always do it. Sometimes life gets in the way. My rule
naturally.
is, if I don't make it to 5,000 words by Friday, then I have to find some time to work on the weekend.
Mm.
And otherwise I don't do that. I try not to do that so that I can give that time to my family and,
Now,
relax and have a life. But if I haven't made my commitment to the word count, like, I stay up late Saturday night or something and get some more words in.
I haven't said it yet, but another wonderful thing that I know a lot of the guys and gals in the chat here, by the way, uh, can relate to is being a family man or family woman. And me personally, I'm gonna speak personally. That is something
You
I
got four.
hold. Yeah, I hold that very high, man. So for you to do what you're doing and also do the dad and husband thing, man, I know how hard that can be to put that time in and also find time for whatever your job is or inspirations are. I just look up to it. It's as simple as that. And there we go, David List. It's crazy encouraging to hear that word count. David, man, come on. I already know you. He's the same kind of dude. He's a family guy, uh, writing, and he's doing a wonderful job. Um, Here we go with the next one. Did you ever meet Robin Hobb?
Many times. Robin Hobb
Mm,
is one of my favorite humans. She's the nicest person. Um,
really? That's so cool.
I was in London at the World Science Fiction Convention. I would say this was, let's say, 2012. I had like a cold, and I had just flown into London, and I was jet lagged, and I had, like, sort of brain fog, and I was
Yeah.
wandering around the convention center, like, trying to find the room that I had a panel in an hour. And like, I must have looked a mess, because Robin saw me and, like, grabbed me and, like, sat me down and, like, got me a cup of tea and, like, made sure that I was okay, and like, helped me find the room that I needed to find, and was just like the nicest person. Like, took that time just to, like, look out for another writer. And I
She
I
feels like
just
a mother figure. She does.
she does, but like a cool mom, like, super
Yes,
like,
of course.
um and who writes amazing books, and, like, is so prolific, like dauntingly prolific. um and keeps working, and also, like, is this, like, badass, like, she runs her own farm, and like, she'll like, have these Instagram posts where, like, there's a fallen tree, and she's like, well, better get the chainsaw. And I'm like, man, when I if I like, to be 70 and being like, well, better get the
Dude,
chainsaw, is like, that alone is
that
inspirational, in
it
addition to the
is.
fact that she writes amazing books, and we have these incredible talks about writing and craft that, like,
Ah,
just means so much to me. Like,
that's incredible, dude. That experience
yeah,
is just incredible. Uh, she's somebody that I would love to talk to eventually because of the reasons that you just spoke. So, as a guy who's read one chapter of hers. And the reason isn't because it was bad. It was because I ordered the illustrated version of The Assassin's Apprentice, and through BookTube, I became just like a couple other people I'm going to tell you about, just so I guess like intimidated that I haven't picked her books up yet, because I feel like I'm going to love them so much that they deserve more time than I can give them at the moment. I hear that she writes characters that just you fall in love with, and then you also fall apart with when they're gone.
It's all
Brandon
true,
Sanderson.
but it's
Have you-
also incredibly accessible. Like her books, yeah, they will break your heart, but like they also there isn't this bar for entry. You can just dive right into that story, and like it feels so comfortable while it's happening, and you don't even realize that it's sort of worming its way into your heart until she
yeah.
breaks it.
You know, that is I have to I'm saying it now and it's official. That's the next book I'll read. Right now I'm halfway through Jade City by Fonda
Oh,
Lee.
Fonda Lee, yeah,
Yeah,
good
dude,
stuff.
she's a gangster. Look, I'm only halfway through the book, and I am 100% convinced that she's an actual gangster. Come on, Fonda, you have to just let it flow. You're an actual gangster, because look, I'm getting so much. I get why people compare it to The Godfather, like I do.
Yeah,
And at first I was like, I'm not going to take that into this book. I'm just going to get my own like feel for it. But it is coming through hardcore, and I'm loving it. She's also good at writing spice, dude. Like there's a spicy scene at like the beginning of the book that I was totally unprepared for. And she did it well. Like she did it to where it wasn't like super creepy or like awkward. Anyway, that's what
yeah.
I'm going through right now, and then I'm gonna
Fonda's
dive into
super
Robin
nice.
Hobb.
Yeah. This is like one of the wonderful things about my job is that I've gotten to meet so many other writers and just hang out with them. And like that's my favorite thing to do. Like I started sort of like a writers and like publishing drinking club in the city like for a while that I ran. And whenever I go to a convention, it's like sort of the first thing I do is like make a chat thread with the other writers who are at the con, and like let's all hang out in between things. Let's go out for drinks.
Oh,
Let's because they're like the only people that really understand.
yeah.
Yeah, like there's this whole part of my life that like my family loves me and everything, but they don't understand what I do. And like
Sure.
the only people who really understand are other writers, and so I love spending time with other writers and seeing how their minds work and seeing like the different way, like everybody has their own like way to to put a book together, and it's different for every single person, and that's amazing to me and fascinating. um so it's one of the best parts of the job is like sort of uh forming this like these friendships with all of these other writers who do the same thing that I do, and like we can all lift each other up and support each other, and also share in the hard parts and give each other advice when something goes wrong. Like
That's the
it's
epitome of what I've found to be, even in like the community that I have, or like the community that I'm a part of. Um, whether it's reviewers or authors, like I've gained so many wonderful connections that like, and this isn't a brag, this is just a symptom of relating to other humans in the most intimate way through your inspirations and passions. Like I announced that I was going to start doing audiobooks, and my wife was like, "You've been doing these crazy voices since the first day we met. This makes so much sense." And then people are like, "Hey, send me your demo." Um, I'm just very, I guess that's just like the excitement in me. I've got like this equipment that I've bought, and I'm very, very excited about doing audiobooks, but it really just plays into that generic foundation of the book community, whether it's reviewers and from your experience, authors, just coming together and sharing that experience, the process. There's no other community that I've been through a lot of like football, basketball, sports, other things like weightlifting, you know, a lot of that in my younger days that didn't add up to the amount of importance that this book community has. And I love that you touched on that because it seems to me, even through authors, you guys have a wonderful community to reach out and to say, "Hey, I had this experience. What was yours?" Or, "Hey, I'm having this issue. Did you ever have this issue? How did you get through it?"
Yeah.
I love that.
And also
Um,
just being able to connect each other in places where it's like, oh, are you published in France? Who's your publisher? You know,
mm,
you know, do you know the editor? Like, you know, like I have a, you know, um, or like they shipped 5,000 copies of my book and there was a misprint and the first page is missing. What do I do? You know, like,
oh wow.
you know, this publisher made this offer and like it was this much money but this much royalty, and this
Mm,
publisher offered less money but a bigger royalty, and what should I do? And like
yeah. What?
these are things
Oh,
where like you need other people who have had those experiences to like give you advice and get and like give you insights, and
that's priceless.
yeah, it's priceless.
Oh man, I love that. And it opens my mind to, you know, the issues that come up with authors too. Because look, I hope someday that somebody says, "Man, I love your book. Would you come and talk to me on my podcast?" I absolutely hope one day that's the deal. Or hey, you've done wonderful audiobooks. So you I guess I'm just saying you inspire me to keep doing what I'm doing, man. Oh, thank you. I'm glad you're here because you were like, I don't know if I'm going to be there. And I was so sad, Cinepalm. I'm going to learn your real name, but I won't say it live. I'm so jelly of your studio. So it looks kind of crazy at the moment. I'm seeing like what you guys are seeing. This is just like the first day. This was the little surprise that I was going to give you guys. I didn't announce that I was done with it, and I'm really not. Um, I have the books on the bookshelf, but seeing what you guys see, I need to zoom in a little bit. But hey, look, it's a work in progress, and I'm very very proud of where. Because look, I used to just hang a green screen behind me. This is the first Peter that I've not had a green screen.
That's such
Your
a huge
interview.
milestone. Like, congratulations, that's
Thank you
fantastic.
so much. I
um
super appreciate that. My very first congratulations was by Peter V. Freaking Brett, dude. That's what's up. I absolutely appreciate that. So, the demon cycle. What
my mom says it's very
was
good.
what is it?
My mom says it's very good.
Oh, dude, thank your mother. That is amazing. Thank you so much. So the demon cycle can people who aren't familiar with the demon cycle read your new series, The Nightfall Saga.
Yes, yes, they can.
Okay.
There's spoilers if they do. So the Nightfall books are set 15 years after the Demon Cycle ends.
Okay.
And the main characters are the children of the original characters. Um, and I'm not going to give any spoilers right here,
Thank
but
you.
if you can start reading those books, and it's like any other fantasy, because in every fantasy you read, there's a big history that like you know you don't get to experience, that you just hear about, like all
Yes.
the shit that happened to the ring, you know, for 3,000 years before Bilbo found it. You get bits and pieces of that. So it's sort of the
100.
same thing with the Nightfall books, where they talk about what happened in the Demon Cycle, like it's like here's the big, you know, world building history you need to know to understand the story. The same way in the Demon Cycle, it was like, oh, here's, you know, there was this story about when the demons came back. um so you can pick up those books and run, and it's designed specifically that way so that you can do that. And we do have a lot of new readers who hadn't who started with those books and then went and read the original series after that. um
And that's fine too.
yeah, it's
Okay.
absolutely fine. It will, you know, you will know the big questions like who lives and who dies at the end of the original series. Like the new series does spoil that stuff.
Okay.
But even so, even if you know those things, if you go back to the beginning when the characters are all kids and they're not going to die for another 20 years,
Sure.
and like there's 20 years of adventure in there, it can be just as compelling in its own way. So I don't think that it ruins it. But if you're somebody who really hates spoilers, I would say start with The Warded Man, and go from there. But if you pick up The Desert Prince, you will have no trouble understanding it.
Look, guys, so this is what now hearing that answer from you, like I've read a couple different answers and this and that, but coming from you, I know what I'm going to do. Like the Demon Cycle will be read before these incredible, like real. I thought it was a real picture, by the way, on your new books. Like I'm like, there's no way that this is illustrated. Like
Which cover do you have?
so I have this cover. I'm talking about the Nightfall Saga, though.
Yeah, that's what I meant, though.
Yeah, the
Because
Nightfall
there's two
Saga
covers in the Nightfall Saga. The
Yeah,
original cover
So,
is a painting, but then the other one is a photograph.
oh, it is an actual photograph. Number 2. Yeah, I'm talking about number 2
Here,
with the gentleman.
this one, and where are you? This one. Okay, so like this is the Desert Prince. This is the
Yeah.
hardcover version.
Oh, dude, that's
Tommy
freaking
Arnold
beautiful.
painted the cover to this.
Holy shit!
And then this one is the softcover one. This is actually a photograph. So Larry Rostand, the cover artist who did the original Demon Cycle books, is also doing the paperbacks for.
That makes sense. I can see the similarities.
And so he will basically get a model. He like does like a cosplay photo shoot in his office, and then he digitally puts in a background and digitally paints like effects on over it, and messes with the colors and stuff. And so it looks sort of like a painting and sort of like a photograph.
Yeah.
And it was a killer effect that we used for the entire original series. And I'm really fortunate that they kept him on doing the paperbacks as well.
This is the one I'm talking about.
Oh, right. Okay. So that's book 2. Dude,
That's incredible.
This is Martina Fakova painted this. I love this painting. It's amazing.
Holy shit, dude.
I wrote the brief for this book, and she delivered so hard. I'm really incredibly fortunate. Maintaining my own bookshelf while I talk to you. The new book, the paperback for that will also have a photo cover. It just hasn't been released yet, I'm realizing, but I've seen it.
No, I get it. Oh man, so as good as those like the Nightfall Saga like covers look, I'm going to purchase the whole that was it. Like tonight I'm going on and I'm just going to go down the line, and I can't wait. I'm glad that I'm doing this way. And it's really the way that I like anticipated I would do it, considering I've started the demon cycle. But that's cool that people can dive into that series, the Nightfall Saga, without necessarily having to read. What is it? Seven books?
There's 5 books in the original series.
5 books.
And then the Nightfall, it will be 3 books, 2 of which are written, or 2 of which are published, and 1 of which is about half written at this point.
Incredible, dude. Oh, that's so cool, man. Look, I think one of the coolest things as a reader is like falling in love with the prose and just being on book 1. And it's like, look, I get to have the experience now through the next, 4 books. And then go on to the next series where those spoilers are going to be Easter eggs, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's incredible, dude. And that has to, in my head, that has to carry a lot of continuity on your part. If you would kind of speak on the continuity and how hard or easy for you it is to maintain that story, but with this next series, keep it in a way that new readers can pick that series up.
Yeah, it's not easy. I mean, none of it is easy. each book is sort of its own little universe to me. Even in the original series, like I don't want to be the guy who just writes the same book over and over again. And so the tone of the books and the way the world expands in each book is different, and the themes of each book are different. Um, but what happens when you're writing a long story, a long series,
Mm.
is that each book creates its own baggage that needs to be dragged by the subsequent books.
Okay.
Um, and this is why Wheel of Time books slowed down. This is why Game of Thrones books slowed down. Song of Ice and Fire books slow down. Like when you're writing a big series with a ton of characters, and all of those characters have a ton of drama, and a lot of that drama is with each other, it gets harder and harder with each book to keep carrying all of that baggage.
Ooh.
Because every time you put two characters in a room together, you have to remember like who killed whose father, and who,
Yeah.
who slept with whose wife, and like who like saved whose life, and whatever. And so there's all of these things that you have to keep in your head while you're writing, so that you're not going against canon, but you're also continuing to write a forward moving story that's exciting and doesn't drag too much. And every time as you get to the later books, even like the C-list characters, or like the D-list like supporting characters, now have names, and things have happened to them, and the readers know that and remember that. And so you get to a point where you have to, even like the maid needs an introduction and has a name, and like was there when this big thing happened, and so it gets
That's
harder and
difficult.
harder. And I thought that by making a clean break, like I finished the original series, like I feel like I stuck the landing, it was done. You can read just the Demon Cycle books and get to the end and feel like you got a solid ending and stop there if you want to. So then with the Nightfall books, I wanted people to be able to come back to the world, see how it's changed in 15 years, get introduced to a new cast, and sort of like still have like the trappings of the familiar world that you're used to, and cameos from the characters that you know, but also have the a new bunch of characters who don't have all that baggage that can move the story forward.
Oh
Um,
man.
However, in practice, uh, because so many of the like C and D list characters had by that point become established, it means that there's a cast in every city and town, and and as the new characters move through those places, all of that old cast kind of had to show up, because it's pointless to make up a whole new cast for every place.
Sure.
So I ended up having to carry a lot of the baggage that I thought I had gotten rid of,
Uh-huh.
because the supporting cast brought it with them. Um,
Wow.
the last book in this new series, which I can't talk about too much,
Sure.
um, takes the main characters and puts them in a completely different place on the map. And that, in many ways, eliminates 90% of that baggage, because all of the other characters are just gone.
Okay.
But instead, now I have to make up a whole new cast for every place everyone goes, and create the supporting characters. Like, so it's hard in its own way, like either way. I get why a big series starts to slow down and creep after a while, because you've got 12 different POV characters, and moving each one of them just incrementally forward takes a whole book.
Sure.
And so that's why like Wheel of Time started to feel like, wow, like every character like walked 10 feet in this book. you
Yeah.
know um Still
No, that makes
compelling to
sense.
read, but like it's understandable how that starts to slow down. um but having to make up everything from scratch is its own headache.
I can imagine. So that makes so much sense. It really does. And it's really, I have to tell you, and I'm thankful for your dive into that, is the true reason that I'm here talking to you. Like the knowledge that I gain from authors in each point of view, and I'm talking about the author's point of view, uh, really inspires me to continue on the road that I'm on with more understanding. So anytime somebody kind of dives into it the way that you just did, I really, really appreciate it. and it brings a whole lot to light that I had no idea was in the dark, if that makes sense.
Mm.
Um,
Well, it makes it easier. Like when you've read a lot of other authors and you have these talks with other authors, you can start to like see the pitfalls that other authors fell into and
mhm,
walk, move around them. It was
sure.
why, like I think because I saw the quagmires that other authors got stuck in, that's why I was able to finish a series.
I
Um,
love that you use quagmires in the right way. A lot of people think that that's just a Family Guy character. Like that. Nope, nope. That's a real word, guys. That's actually really funny. That you should look it up. Anyway, I appreciate that. Um, so working with the Broken Binding, how was that?
they were great. I think I was one of their first. One of the first books they did during the pandemic. The Desert Prince came out in 2021, and so it was still a really weird time where like the bookstores were technically open, but nobody was going to them.
I hear it was
Um,
hard.
yeah, you couldn't tour. Like most of the promotion for my books was basically just me going from place to place and glad handing and doing events, and we couldn't
Wow.
do any of that. Um, and so one of the really cool and interesting things that sort of came out of that period of time was the idea of the growth of like the book box,
Hmm.
like the subscription box or the special edition, pre-orders where you can get a copy of the book that's already been signed, that has sprayed edges, that has like a leather cover or something special about it that
Yep.
makes you feel like you got a collectible thing that
Yes.
the author really touched and that can hold pride of place on your bookshelf, and
Exactly.
that made up for at least in some part the fact that we couldn't do a lot of the normal traditional book publicity stuff that we used to do. So Broken Binding like was in the right place at the right time,
Oh
and
yeah.
the books that they did were like amazing. There was a lot of time like sort of signing the tip-in sheets, which is I got through like two Avengers movies signing tip-in sheets. Um, but they opened up a whole new market in publishing, which is fantastic. That's you had a Broken Binding, Jade City. I think your sound is out.
There we go. So
Yeah,
they're
that's
they're
better.
the only box that I'll ever subscribe to. Like look, and that's no like dogging on Illumicrate or like Book of the Month or whatever you guys also are inspired by. But um, I know Matt at Broken Binding is like the real deal.
Yeah, he really is.
To what is it?
I agree with you. He really is.
He's a gangster, man. It's funny. He kind of looks like me. But he also just, I think he does wonderful things like signing his first as a publisher, Ryan Cahill.
Mm.
I think that's incredible. I'm so freaking proud of Ryan. It just, I love their books. It's quality. I like once I get them in the mail, it's fun too because it's like once it's leaving the UK, I've learned that there's something called the Royal Mail. That's so cool. I don't know why that's so cool to me.
Yeah,
Um,
the original series in the UK was published in this format, this like small hardcover format,
dude,
um, and it's called the Royal Hardback format, which I just love. Like,
I want every single. I've been looking on Amazon and I can't necessarily find a lot of it. At least maybe you can point me in the right. Maybe not. Maybe
those
they're
ones
gone.
that first edition Painted Man, they only made I think 6,000 of them.
Wow.
So so it's hard to find.
Yeah, dude. I am a
Um,
hardcover freak. I know a lot of people aren't. I know a lot of people are, but me, when I open a hardcover book, that's the epitome of joy.
Yeah, there's like the book as a vehicle for a story, and then there's the book as a work of art in and of itself.
Yes,
And I think that one of the things that sort of changed in the last few years, and some people have always had a sense of, is just that like a book is not just content. Like it's also sort of like a thing on your shelf that
it
like
is.
just
It
looking
holds
at it
life.
can remind you of the adventure you went on when you had it, and
But
like
that's what
having
these new covers did for
yeah,
me, Brett. That's what these new covers
they're
did for
great.
me. Like a mass produced or mass market paperback for me. Like I'm 6'5", 250 pounds. I have big hands. Like a mass production paperback is way too small for me. So when I grab this is equally as um like satisfactory to me as a hardcover.
Yeah.
The trade paperback.
The trade
Uh,
paperback is where it's at right now. The mass
yes.
market paperback, the really small ones, they've been phasing those out for a year. You know, for years. They like there's some series, like if it's a long series that's been in that format for a while, they'll keep publishing them to finish out the series, but they're
Uh,
not doing any new books in that format
no,
because it's just the trade paperback is so much more satisfying.
it is.
Yeah.
It really, and I hate to say it, like I don't know if I hate to say it, but the reason that I'll read this over, I have a couple paperbacks that are mass production paperbacks back, back at like two or three of them, but that's it. And it's like that's the only thing I could find, so that's why I grabbed it. But yeah, 100%. It just feels better. It's got the floppy factor. It's able to be. I can hold it with one hand. With a mass paperback, it's so small that like it's so
Yeah.
tight that I can't unless I crack the spine, which I'm not willing to do.
It's not markets are nice because you can shove it in your back pocket, you can shove it in a bag. It's really easy and portable. But I'm in my 50s now, and I can't read print that small as
Yeah,
easily
dude.
as I used to. It's hard. They really have to shrink the leading and the print size to fit it in those little books. That like, yeah, it's a young person's game.
It is, dude. It is 100. I totally agree with you. If I'm buying a book, and especially after moving all these books, dear God, man, if I'm buying a book that I want to keep, it's going to be hardback, which I know is heavier, but knowing what that means to move it and like transport that, it's going to be a select few. And look, if I can find some of your editions, one of those 6,000, I'll definitely grab it. If not, I'm going to be happy with these new ones because I
New ones
also,
are great.
yeah,
The
they're
the
amazing.
artist, the cover artist, Dominic Broniak, he's been working with me for 15 years now. He does all the illustrations of the stories in Poland for the Polish editions of the book, and I love his work so much. We work really
Oh,
closely together. I describe demons and characters to him in great detail, and
dude, he
the
nailed it.
work he does has been great. And like I don't know if since you just have the one, if you look on the spine, you can't really see it, but
Huh.
that set, um, if you put the spines all together,
Oh, I see a
uh,
face.
it forms like a horde of demons running across your bookshelf,
Nice,
which
dude.
is just awesome.
It
Uh,
is. Holy shit. I see a face with teeth. So I can see like where
yeah,
that's going
you
to expand.
yeah, and like yeah, that's just the first demon in a charging like horde of them.
Look,
Um,
the fire demons, they had me. Look, they're little guys. Like
Terrifying.
yeah, they are. It's like I think that you did that great, man. Like let's there we go. Mom needs protecting, which at one point becomes an issue. Let's not spoil anything.
Mhm.
But those fire demons are little bastards, dude.
Yeah, they're just fast and like their spit is like napalm. It
They
sticks and it burns hotter than anything.
don't
Um,
play. Look,
Yeah.
the big guys are scary. They are. But like if it's me, if this is real life, look, those fire demons, I'm going to be thinking about them the most.
Well, I like, and that's what I wanted. I wanted the reader to be scared. I wanted
Yeah.
like even one demon, even the smallest of the, like the smallest breed of demon, like should be terrifying to a
It's like
person
a
who's
little
trapped
shih
out at
tzu.
night.
It's like a little
Um,
shih tzu of fire.
yeah, that can't be hurt by normal weapons. Like there's nothing you can do that's going to stop that thing. And that fear was what I really wanted to permeate that book to make readers. I wanted readers to be scared.
Yes, dude. So what was it? How did you now? I've never heard the word ward before.
Hmm.
Uh, I'm not sure of anything actually. Was that something you created, or is it
No,
something that you drew inspired by?
I was inspired by it. I mean, like, so the way I use it is sort of like a lesser known usage of it, but I'd read it in other fantasy books. It's not like I made
Okay.
that up. And the idea of magic symbols that repel evil is something that every culture has that. Like even cultures that have grown up independently of each other have that.
Yes.
And so I wanted there to be a lot of themes in the books that were relatable no matter who you were. I think that's why the books do well in translation, is that, you know, there's monsters out in the dark, and we're scared of them. Like, you need magic symbols to protect yourself from them, the same way you would hold up a cross to a vampire or whatever.
Exactly, like the Holy
Yeah.
Cross.
Or drawing the evil eye, or like so many different cultures have these like symbols of protection, that it felt like something that no matter where you're from, this could feel like a real part of your history. And that's what I
Mhm.
really wanted. That's the tone I wanted to set with that magic system. And
I
I wanted a magic system that was dependent on hard work and practice, and like, learning and understanding, rather than, oh, you just happen to be born able to do magic and good for you. Like, most
yes.
most people can't, because that's unsatisfying.
Yes, dude. Oh my gosh, you just like I was sitting here pondering what to say next, and that was it.
Mm.
So, yes, man, the knowledge it took to learn these wards and the knowledge that is unknown, right? And sought after to find out like the reason this past or the legacy of wards. It's like an education that they're after to draw these wards is something I totally related with. And it wasn't just I'm born and now I'm a reluctant hero, or I'm this hero that's, got to save the world. It's like this is something on history. And in my mind, I know this might sound crazy, but I'm like, this seems like something that could be real. I don't know why I thought that. Maybe that I hope that's part of why you wrote the book, but in my mind it's like I could definitely see this these characters, these written characters protecting me because of what you just said, like throughout multiple types of history, whether it's this country or that, you can relate that type of ideology or iconology or icons, whatever the word is, to make sense of that. And that is abundant.
Yeah,
Uh,
I spent a lot of time working on that magic system, and I really like how it turned out.
yeah, 100%. So, Caden, what's going on, man? Sometimes I recognize you, sometimes I don't, because you and your lovely wife have the Love and Lore uh, new name. But man, I'm glad you're here, brother. Another wonderful indie author, Caden Love. What a better name, right? Caden Love.
That is a good name.
It is. And I was watching your videos lately, Caden, because well, you produce a lot of them, and I need you to grow a beard, man. You need to grow a beard, dog. You got that baby face. You need to get some grit to you.
Oh, I
Uh,
buzzed mine down to default last night. I probably should have kept it.
no, hey, you've got the grit going on, man. I dig it.
I like it.
Um,
It gets it once it gets to the point where it's like getting in my mouth. I like have a
yes,
buzzer setting where I'm just like, all right, I call it default, where I'll buzz
dude.
it back to that, and then I'll be good for 3 weeks or so.
Like the mustache, dude, I trim before it gets there. Like once it's to
Yeah.
my lips and tickling me, like I am trimming that mustache. But this bad boy can grow. It's kind of slow for me, but hey, we're
Yeah.
gonna do it. I'm gonna keep it. The kids, I think it's funny if you look on YouTube's like dads shaving their like big beards and showing them to their daughters or sons. They're freak out, dude. They don't even know who it is. But I plan on keeping mine. I think that my marketing abilities would be gone without it.
I shaved my
Excuse
head
me.
for charity a few years ago, and my kids did not care for that at all.
Well, you have that choice, my friend. This wouldn't grow since 16, dude. Can you imagine 16? Your buddies are like, "Hey, your shit's growing backwards, dude. You got a 5 head." I'm like, you guys are just playing with me. No, they weren't.
I mean, I've
Um,
only got about 40% of what I used to have either.
dude,
So
that imagine having that at 16, man. Like, I promise you, that's what I thought. I was fully confident too. I was like, no, I'm not gritting bald. I was completely in denial.
do you
Uh,
like if you could go back and talk to yourself, would you tell yourself like it's gonna be okay?
yes, like I probably wouldn't change anything because I don't think I started shaving my head till I was like 18, 19, 20, something like that.
Mm,
But fortunate, God gave me this egg-shaped head. It's not completely terrible bald. So hey, I work with it and I'm thankful for
yeah. You never know what you're gonna get until you shave your
it.
head. Like you never know
Dude,
what kind of head shape you have.
dude, my uncle, he's gone now. God rest his soul. But he had a pack of hot dogs on the back of his neck. And this back he was like, bro, I'm so sorry for that. But like, I know you have to shave your head, but dude, there ain't no hope for you. Good thing you got a wife.
Mm,
Uh anyway, I've fully embraced the bald head. And it's funny because when my wife met me, she's like, I never knew how I was going to react to a bald head because that's like nothing I dealt with before. But she's like, at least you pull it off. So, if there's one positive, there it is.
own it.
Exactly. Um, love a great magic system. Of course you do, brother. Um, if I could only grow one, I know you can grow one, man. Just don't grow, just don't shave for like look, they tell you if you shave that it'll grow back thicker. That's false. Just keep that bad boy going, man. We all go through like awkward stages, man. Just embrace it. Tim, you've got a badass beard, bro. You can talk on this. Long beard, trim sash. This is the way. Exactly. As soon as that bad boy starts tickling the lips, it's over.
Yeah,
Um,
you
so
gotta.
so what are you working on, Peter? And what's coming up for you?
So I just uh finished a Demon Cycle novella. That's
No way.
I I was doing a bunch of conventions with my friend Sarah Beth Durst.
Yeah,
She just wrote this book called The Spell Shop. It's been on the Times list for weeks
yeah.
now.
Heard of it.
She's she's written 50,000 books or something obscene like that. But this book, like the way she talks about it, she talked about it with such love, and it's a cozy fantasy.
Hey, those are good slump burners right there.
I didn't have a lot of experience with cozy fantasy books before,
Mhm.
but she spoke about it with such love and such interest that I really like started thinking about it. And I've always said that in the Demon Cycle world, like I have what it takes to write all kinds of stories. And so I was like, I could write a cozy mystery
Hell
set in
yeah,
the
you
Demon Cycle.
can.
I could do that.
Hell
And
yeah.
I looked up like what a cozy mystery involved, and it was like someone who's not a detective discovers a body and like is forced to figure out who done it because of some relation they have to the person, and has to go through it like a cast of lovable idiots to figure out who did it. And I was like, I have a cast of lovable idiots. And so I set this murder in Tibbetts Brook. um
Oh no way.
yeah. It's sort of like Who Shot Mr. Burns. Like you know, the most hated man in town ends up dead, and everybody's a suspect.
Mm,
And I was just incredibly inspired to write it. It was sort of like my summer vacation writing project this year.
that's freaking awesome, dude.
So I finished that. I turned that in, and now I'm back to work on the Demon King, which is the third book in the Nightfall saga. That's the last book I officially have on contract.
Okay.
So I'm going to finish that at the beginning of next year, and then I have another book that is about 70% ish written. That's a standalone fantasy that's not related to anything else I've ever done before. Just one and
Wow.
done, and has a completely new magic system that I'm super into. Um, so I think after I turn in the Demon King, I'll be able to finish that book in relatively short order. And then after that, I don't know. Uh,
Okay. Dude, there's so many things in that I'm excited for. There's a standalone coming out, which I think every fantasy lover is like in love with, is that fantasy standalone. But there's nothing like going through a series. Like I'm gonna go like 100%. There's zero chance I'll go to the Nightfall saga before I'm done with the Demon Cycle.
yeah, if you've
And
started the Warded Man,
yeah.
you should
Oh
stay
no,
the
I'm done
course.
with it. Like
Yeah.
I'm on the cusp of reading book 2, which is The Painted Man.
No, no, the Painted Man and the Warded Man are the same book.
Oh, I don't know why
It's
the hell
just
I thought.
it's like the Philosopher's Stone and the Sorcerer's Stone.
Oh yes.
So in the UK it's the Painted Man, and in the US it's the Warded Man. But they're the same book,
It,
except in the UK they spell like color with an extra U and shit like that.
yeah. My wife told me she'll fucking DNF a book over that type shit. And it
Oh
just kills me. Dude, she's like, I don't like shit having an E after it. I don't like color having a U in it. It's like, well, then you should probably stick to American authors.
yeah,
But
I mean I
me,
grew up reading like Tolkien and stuff, so I never knew that that was like I
dude,
always thought that was normal.
shite is probably or arse with the
Ours is great.
RSE.
I
Like,
use that. I'll spell gray with an E instead of an A. Like I don't have to
hell
be
yeah.
American all the time. You know, you
It
do what
it
sounds
it
cool.
yeah, it doesn't bug me at all. Like it wasn't even a thought in my head, and my wife brought it to me. It's like I'll DNF a book if it's like that way, and I'm like, that's okay. That's your thing, you know, American author, vernacular, whatever it is. But it is funny.
Yeah.
Um, I'm excited to hear what you got coming up, man, and to hear what you're working on and why you're working on it is very inspiring. So I have to get to a couple points real quick. It's like having this opportunity to talk to you as somebody I admire, somebody I love your work, man. It's being enjoyed. It's being inspirational to so many people, and I'm one of them. I just had the opportunity to be able to talk to you, so I wanted to thank you so much for letting me just kind of have the opportunity to sit down with you and kind of pick your brain a little bit, man. I really appreciate it.
No, I'm happy to do it. Thanks for inviting me. I like, you know, again, I say like during the pandemic, like I sort of lost the habit of doing this sort of thing, and so this year has been like a really great sort of re-entry into just getting to sit and chat about my books, and like
Yeah.
whether it's going to a live event or doing an event like this. It's I really enjoy it. I genuinely enjoy it. I appreciate you inviting me. Like it means a lot to me that you thought enough of my work to want to do that, and so I'm glad
Oh.
to be here. Thank you.
Oh man, you know what? Thank you so much for that because that really touches me. It touches the heart because I love your work and as a guy who is just a YouTube kind of hobbyist, it just means a lot. So thank you for being here and for everybody that he was here live. I know I haven't been live very much often. I've had to cancel a couple of interviews. They are rescheduled, but I sure am happy to kind of come back with a guy that's probably my most recent, no, 100% my most recent all-time favorite authors, Peter V. Brett, and I just wanted you to know that, man. So as a guy
Thank you.
that keeps inspiring me, and I hope to have back on the channel. I just wanted to thank you, thank everybody that was here live, and for those who will watch it on replay.
Yeah, I saw somebody in the comments from UB. So hey,
From who?
from University of Buffalo, my college.
Yeah,
Sorry,
he's
my university.
there he is. That's Jesse
Yeah.
Garcia. Thank you,
Yeah.
Jesse.
Hey, Jesse.
Buffalo it is. New York. Hey, I've never been there. I'm not far away. I do plan on venturing that way when the time's right. I don't think it's time at the moment. But I would love to come
Definitely
see
don't
the
go there in the
Empire
winter.
State Building. What is it?
Or Buffalo, I was saying don't go there in the winter. But New York City is
Yeah.
amazing in the winter.
Oh man, Christmas. I'm a huge Christmas fan. So I'm gonna have to come to, I don't remember the name of the store, but it's like that Christmas store.
Well, they've got
I
like the Macy's windows. There's like FAO
Yes.
Schwartz was like sort of the big, like, you know, Christmas place in a lot of the like movies. You've got Rockefeller Center with a big tree. Like there's a lot to see at Christmas in New York City.
Oh man, I can't wait. So once my kids are a little bit more manageable, that is 100% on my schedule.
Yeah.
So again, thank you so much, Peter. Thank you everybody that was here live. Thank you for you guys that will watch this on replay. I'm back tomorrow at I think 3 p.m. I will announce it on Twitter, X, whatever it is anymore. You know what? I think we're past that. I think it's just X. Let's just call it X. That's what the fuck it is. I will announce the time. I believe it's 3 p.m. with Richard Chismar, the horror author, in the flesh, and plenty of more scheduled down the road. I know I've been gone for a little while, trying to get this building built and kind of been in limbo, but we're back, and you know, I'll zoom in with the camera and I'll have that a little bit better. But I am super proud of doing my very first one with Peter V. Brett. So thank you guys so much. Peter, you have a wonderful night. Thank your family for letting me
Thank
borrow
you
you for a little bit. And you guys that were live, you have a wonderful night. We'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone.